Hey, how you doing? Justin here. Today we're going to be exploring our D chord shape. Now this is kind of pitched at what I class as advancing beginners. So you're kind of confident with your basic beginner stuff, your open chords, maybe some bar chords and stuff as well. And you're looking for some ways of adding interest to the chords and the songs that you already know. And this is a really great tool because every open chord has certain things about it that you can do that sound really interesting. And it can be as simple as like adding a finger in or lifting a finger off. And it just gives you a whole bunch of new sounds that you can use. And all of these things I'm going to show you are kind of substitutes for a D chord. We might explore D minor as well. But basically, if you assume you've got a D chord for a whole bunch of times, here's a bunch of things that you can do that can kind of add interest into the stuff that you're already doing. So here's our regular D chord. And I'm kind of assuming many of you will have explored at least a little bit on my beginner's course, the D sus4. So adding little finger down on the 3rd fret of the thinner string. Really, really common little variation. You can use that anytime pretty much you got a D. And you've also got lifting off the 2nd finger, which will give you a D sus2. Loads of different variations you can get just exploring D sus2, D sus2 and D sus4. I promise I will learn the names of the chords one day. But some other variations that most people might not have thought of or might be scared of is, first one, lifting off 3rd finger. Okay, it gives us, it's a D6 chord, but you don't need to worry about that. It's just a variation that you can use. Sounds really cool. Might not work every time, but it's something, especially if it's only short, it's definitely one you can be using. Okay, it's definitely the kind of thing that you can really start to expand your chord grips by just lifting a finger off that's not one of the fingers that you might conventionally use. You know, you're unlikely to find this grip in many chord books because people think, well, it's a kind of an unusual sounding chord, and it is if you just stayed on it, but you're not. You just think of it as a little variation on your D chord. Now, along the same lines, lifting off your 1st finger. Okay, it's not an unpleasant sound, that. It's kind of sounds a little bit different, but that's fine. And that, again, that's a really nice little variation that you got for your D chord, lifting off 1st finger. Okay, now, in theory, we've lifted off this finger. We had a D sus2. We've lifted off this finger and got a 6. This one, I guess we should call it a D add 4, would be the proper name for it. But that means all of the fingers could also lift off. Now, obviously, it doesn't really sound much like a D chord anymore. I guess we could call it a D6 sus2 sus4 if we wanted to give it a fancy name. It's not important, it doesn't matter at all. It's just something you can do. Or just maybe leave 1st finger down. Maybe just leave 3rd finger. Or just experiment, right? There's, you know, it's totally fine to try out lots of different things, and you shouldn't be scared of just having a go. You know, we tried adding little finger down there. That one worked. If we add little finger here, it's a pretty unusual sound. It's a sus sharp 4, I suppose we should call it. Okay, there's certain songs that would work really well in. Probably most songs it's not going to. If you're playing a song in the key of G and you whap down that note, it's going to sound pretty awkward. But it doesn't hurt to have a go and check it out and try it. You know, just see what it sounds like. Putting your little finger down here in the 4th fret of the 2nd string isn't going to sound nice. right? I can't really think of any examples where that might work really well, okay? So that's probably a place that you wouldn't want to put your little finger, right? Putting it down here in the 6th fret, on the note that's the 6th note of the D major scale, that's the 4th fret of the 3rd string. That's a real nice one. It's the same as that we might do for a 12-bar blues like this. We're adding in that note. So you can add it as like a little kind of bluesy kind of feel. Okay, so that's another little variation you can definitely explore a bit. And again, how nice is that? Okay, and this is still all just like a substitute for a D chord. If you see a D chord in a book, you could muck around with all of these different variations. There's another nice one here. Adding little finger down in the 4th fret of the 4th string, so we're removing the root note. Okay, it's used a lot in kind of, that kind of, there's lots of different kind of songs that might use that kind of little idea. And again, that one's a little bit more awkward, but it's not that difficult. It's something that kind of advancing beginners should be exploring. You've also got things like adding the F sharp in the bass note. If you want to do it with your thumb, that's probably the most common way. Some people will re-finger it, so you've got the D chord using different fingers and adding in the bass note down there, particularly if you've got this kind of movement where you want in the bass note. That's the most common use of this D with an F sharp bass, but that's again a common one. You probably don't want to be moving the bass note to other ones unless you really understand what you're doing harmonically. Which is different, I guess, because most of the other options I've said about, you don't want to worry about the chords and what the name is or the function of the notes particularly. It doesn't hurt to know it, but it's not what it's about. It's just exploring the shape and trying to find some new things that you can do to add interest to the chord grip. The one thing that you want to watch out for with a D chord is substituting a D minor. Now, if you've got a D minor chord, nearly all of the variations I've shown you will work. Little finger on the 4th fret down there will not work because that's the major third. That'll just sound atrocious. Okay, that's not a happy camper sound at all. But do stay aware that you can't substitute D major and D minor, right? So if you've got this, you can't suddenly start playing a minor chord because it's almost certainly going to sound a little bit wonky. There's going to be times where it might not, but 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, that isn't a substitute for that. But stay aware that if you've got a D minor, that you can explore all of these lifting fingers off, adding them down, just seeing what different sounds you can get out of it. Well, I'm pretty hopeful that's going to give you a whole bunch of new ideas that you can explore next time you see a D chord. No longer will you be restricted to just playing that one chord. You should definitely get on to lifting the fingers off, adding fingers down, and just exploring what sounds you can make. Remember, it's all down to your ears. If you listen to it and it sounds good, it is good. If it sounds bad, it is bad. That's how it works. Don't worry about the theory. Don't worry about the technical names of the chords. It really, really doesn't matter. You can learn it, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing to learn it and to understand what's going on, but it's not the important part. The important part is listening and checking out what it sounds like. So go and have a load of fun with your D chord, and I'll see you for the next shape very soon. Bye-bye.